All right, I have got a lot to say about this one, so do you want to actually start it off?
No. Um, I don't know. I mean, I've seen this movie before. I think one and a half times because I believe I mentioned this in a different part that my dad pirated this movie for me when I was a kid. I watched half of it, and because I am very bad at watching movies by myself because I get antsy and want to do something else, I just kind of paused it. I'm like, oh, I'll take a break from this and like browse the internet for a bit, and then get back to it. And then I never got back to it. I was probably like 10. Um, and then I think they just showed this movie at school at one point, so that's when I saw the whole thing. Uh, I remember the plot pretty much. There's Earth is been too polluted and is uninhabitable, so all the people are on like a big spaceship somewhere, and they live a. Well, we don't see them until later, but we just see
Right.
Wally is this robot that is supposed to clean up trash or something and compact it um, into like these cubes to be so hopefully the earth can be cleaned up a little bit. And you know there's a love plot with like this with is it Eve, this
Yeah.
other like more futuristic robot. I don't really remember what she does. I think maybe she's supposed to be like preserving some plant sample or something. There's a whole thing about like this seed of life continuing to thrive, not thrive, but exist in spite of the pollution and all that type of stuff. Pollution.
Pro
Definitely
roll
meant to say it
assist
like that.
machine.
Um, and this movie is probably best known for being entirely silent for the first like half to 2/3. Um, Aside from like clips of it's some musical or
Hello,
like
Dolly,
yeah.
which I
Um,
have not seen. I don't know anything about it.
but the actual characters do not speak ever. Like the main characters, they're robots.
They sort of
And
do, but they say,
they go
like,
like
well, no,
right.
they'll say words, but it's like one or two words at best.
Oh,
They'll
okay.
be like,
For some reason, I thought they
directive,
never
and
speak.
like that kind of thing. But
I see. But yeah, it's. I don't really remember. I feel like I don't see people talk about this movie that much, but it always felt like something that was like, something very interesting and different for Pixar for the time being. So kind of, I guess, experimental is the right word. And it
yeah.
seems like it mostly worked out. People seem to like it. I think you mentioned recently that like it's not that widely loved. It's not commonly some people's favorites. I always thought it was like a big hit, but
I've seen it as people's favorites a few times, I think, but it's I don't really look at communities that are talking about movies all that often. Like, I'll
mm,
watch stuff that kind of ranks them, like Schaefer List videos. Obviously, back in the day, there was like Nostalgia Critic with the like Disney December and stuff. Um, but yeah, I don't really have a good sense of any of that. Um, shall I begin my epic rant, or do you have anything else you
I
want to get into?
I suppose so. I'm not really sure what else to add.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I have said for a long time that this is my favorite movie, and I've been kind of questioning lately if that's actually true or not. Um, and it's hard to say because you can like a movie for multiple different reasons. And so it's hard to kind of judge, like, maybe the best in this category versus that or whatever. Um, I have a reason why I think this is my favorite, and it basically just kind of goes into it's based off of like my first experience with it. Um, and I'm going to start this by saying that it's in my opinion, I like. I mean, maybe it's a stupid way to say it, but like the way I look at it, this is kind of a similar situation to the fact that I do have a favorite song, and I never talk about it. I've basically told nobody. You know what it is, and like a couple other people, but I am kind of known as not having that much of an interest in music outside of like game soundtracks, and that is true. But there is one song in particular, and I'm not going to say what it is, that is special to me, and I couldn't really tell you why. It's just, I heard it for the first time as a kid when I was in the car, I think, and I just thought it was really beautiful. And ever since then, I basically, when I was younger, I didn't really have a way to seek it out. But then as time went on and, YouTube happened and it's like, I have the capability to just pull up this song. I can download it. I can listen to it whenever I want. I've never done that because to me, it's kind of more special to just have it be this rare thing that pops up occasionally that I have no control over. It's the type of thing I might hear it like, once every year or 2 years. And so it's like, I don't even know the words to it really. It's a special thing to me. And Wally is kind of that same way for me. It had a big impact on me when I first watched it. I think I've seen it one other time. This should be my third time now. And I feel like watching it too many times would ruin it. It's, it makes its point. It's the first half of the movie is an interesting, artistic movie. And a lot of people like to shit on the second half, and they're like, as soon as the humans show up, the movie got ruined. I don't think that's true. It definitely shifts in tone, but I like the second half also. I like the message that it gives. Mm-hmm. It has a good story.
I know people most take issue with the villain being a bit kind of like stock, I guess.
I haven't actually seen that.
No? I swear I've heard people be like, oh, they just did HAL 9000.
They kind of do, but it's... lately, I mean, maybe this is a more recent thing because Disney and Pixar and a lot of companies have been doing the twist villain so much lately. This one sort of is, but it's a twist villain done right, where it's in the background and, like, it's not that, like, haha, I was evil the whole time. It's more so that you didn't think there was going to be a villain, and it's like, oh, this thing was actually fucking with everything the whole time. Like, but I think Otto is an interesting case. But, yeah, as for why this had an impact on me, I couldn't necessarily tell you. All I can really explain is just my situation when I watched it. Because, as I've said in previous videos, after Finding Nemo, I stopped seeing Pixar movies in the theater up until eventually I started when I was living with Martin. So there was kind of a gap. And most of those I just kind of caught on TV at some point. With this one, I don't remember if I specifically asked for it. I don't think I did. But we rented it from Netflix. Like, they would send you DVDs. And the kids might have watched it before I did. I honestly don't remember. If they did, I didn't see any of it. But I just watched it on my own on the computer. I just, I guess just to give a little bit of, like, to set the stage a little bit, this was after I was out of high school, and there were a few years where I basically did jack shit. This was when my YouTube channel first kind of started taking off, and so I basically poured all of my energy into that. It was like, I don't know, 2008. I don't know when this movie came out. Maybe 2009. But as far as when I saw it, I don't remember. But, my day pretty much was just... I'd get up and I would just be on the computer the entire day, usually on my laptop, and, I would have to watch the kids for a while. I would record stuff. I would just talk to people, and that was basically it. And I usually wouldn't watch movies. I don't usually have the attention span for it that much. I would just, watch short videos, or I would read forums and stuff, whatever. But I decided this movie sounds interesting. I want to see it. And it, I turned it on. It kept my attention the entire time. And when it was over, I just kind of had a moment where I'm just like, fuck, man. Like, this movie is showing, like, in the future, people are going to be these useless sacks of shit that don't know anything about the world around them. Everything is, completely digitalized, and they, don't even know how to walk or read, probably, and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm turning into this. Maybe not as extreme, but, this was a point when I basically didn't leave the house. I didn't have anything to do other than keep up with my YouTube channel. I would not shower for a whole week because I didn't give a shit. And it's like, this basically just kind of made me think. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to be like that. Now, the thing is, I can't say I really changed that much. I'm still kind of a useless sack of shit. But, I at least sort of work now. It's not an impressive job. I don't work that many hours, but, I do something. And, I'm going to school now after however fucking many years, but it at least kind of, like, made me stop feeling so complacent with it. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, I wish I could say that this movie changed my life, but it just kind of recontextualized it. It made me think like, oh shit. And then there's the whole environmental aspect to it, and that's another thing I never really talk about because, I'm not an activist. I'm about as far as you can be from being one, but that is something I worry about. I want to do my best to not make the world a worse place, and it makes me sad when I see other people, just creating fucking, littering and just creating problems. And it's like, on a personal level, I feel like most people can't do that much. It is kind of just up to big business to have more regulations. That's where, 99% of pollution and other bad shit comes from. But it's just one of those things. I don't know what else to say about it. So
Yeah.
I think
I'm actually not sure. I'm not sure if like, because I remember the movie more or less. I'm trying to remember if it has more of a specific point to make on environmentalism other than we shouldn't pollute the earth, but there's always hope even if things seem bad or something. Like,
yeah, I don't know if it necessarily does either. And the thing is,
that's
like,
fine. It doesn't need complex. It can have a simple.
yeah, and it's like, other than Otto, the villain of the movie is just by and large. It's this fucking company that just takes over everything, controls everybody's lives, and ruins the planet. And it's, you can point at any number of large companies and say that, they're that or whatever. And it's exaggerated, but, these things could be better. So.
Yeah. On by and large in like a bunch of the other movies as well. And that's like kind of the crux of why people came up with the whole Pixar theory thing, is because they're like,
if they
oh
are,
shit, the company is in all these other movies. Like, I'm pretty sure it's in Up.
If they are, I don't remember that. They could be. I've not heard of this, or if I have, I forgot about it. But yeah, that's basically my bit. I watched the movie the one time. It kind of had that impact on me. I watched it again later with Martin, and that's it. I don't have any further connection to it.
Well, so. I'm glad to get to share a viewing of it with you. If you're gonna make a point of not watching it that often, as you said, it'll be nice to experience it together and get to talk about it a little bit.
Yep. I don't think
I feel like I should have more to say here,
but I mean, I don't know what you would really.
Yeah. Maybe more. Maybe I'll have more to say afterwards.
Okay, we sure did watch the movie. I
yeah.
Honestly don't know what more to add. I figure we'll just kind of do our thing where we talk about scenes we liked.
Yeah. Did you still like it as much as you did before?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. It still made me cry a few times, but
yeah.
It always does. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything major that I would have missed the first couple of viewings that I gained this time. There were definitely parts of it I didn't really remember. I forgot about the entire plot of the plant getting, like, intercepted when they first got to the ship, and when she didn't have it, I didn't understand why. And
yeah, when she didn't have it, I'm like, oh, okay. the wheel stole it.
What I thought happened was like, oh, Wally must have taken it at some point, and like he has it in his compartment. But then they showed that he didn't either, and I'm like, okay, I actually don't remember what happened here, and it was I think it was handled in a fairly subtle way, where like, you know, the robot, like the little thing going around, that was the one that stole it in the first place or whatever and tried to get rid of it. Like it's so small and like nondescript that I couldn't even remember. I thought it was Mo at first.
I kept mixing it up with Mo. Yeah.
Yeah. But that might have been by design, because
Maybe.
you're not really supposed to really know that anything's afoot at the time.
Yeah. Is there like a scene where you can actually see it happening? Because I didn't notice one. If so.
I don't think so, but when the Eves arrive at the Axiom, like you can see the whole thing with the A113, and then you see later on that that's the override, and so it's like, it's one of those things where I only noticed it because that code has just been in a bunch of Pixar movies, and I'm like, oh, it's the thing, and then it comes back. I'm like, oh, that was the override thing. Okay.
I will say that I quite enjoyed it. It's not my favorite, but I liked it quite a bit. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
There was a lot more robot hijinks than I remembered / expected. Like, I knew obviously, there's the Wally and Eve like sort of love angle, but I'm talking about just like funny robots smacking into each other and blasting around and making a mess and all that thing. Because there's the whole part where they have like the malfunctioning robots that get kind of accidentally broken out of their like they're like being held for like repair or something, and they just cause a bunch of chaos and a ruckus, and that was fun.
I like how they just kind of became an entourage. Like,
yes, I think I made a comment where like, oh boy, here you go, it's a Pixar movie. You got to have the random gaggle of side characters. Except in this one, they don't talk, because hardly anyone talks in this movie or talks much.
You look fabulous, darling. No, that's like the one thing that they say. But
you kept mentioning, or you mentioned once in the beginning, like, oh no, they do say like a few things here and there, like directive and stuff. I had no memory of that. I genuinely, like, if you gun to my head, it would have been like, no, Wally and Eve don't speak.
You didn't even remember the like Eva and stuff.
Nope, nope, not at all. I thought they didn't speak. I thought it was a completely like wordless movie from my memory, and I also thought I remembered it's staying that way for over the halfway point, all the way up until like 2/3. But it's actually only about a third of the way into the movie that the humans show up and you start getting some dialogue.
Yeah. I couldn't. I didn't remember how long it was. I wouldn't have like put money on it being the halfway point, but that's how I always people describe it, is that if you have the first half is like the silent movie or whatever, and then humans in the second half. But I guess in terms of pacing, it's kind of that way. It feels a little bit longer in the first parts, but I also forgot how much like incidental dialogue is in the first part, because you get like the B&L commercial and that kind of stuff, which is I really like the way that was handled, where it's
very eerie and...
you have like it's kind of environmental storytelling for a little bit, where you're just like, okay, the planet is deserted, there's garbage everywhere, here's this little guy that's kind of making these cubes, like, what happened here? And you get like, there's a poster showing, I forget what it is, but they have like a couple things that you can kind of see.
It felt very much like you were playing like a walking simulator type game.
Yeah.
Like everybody's gone to the Rapture or something, where it's just like, you just wander around and you get like audio logs and like memories and shit, and you're like, you kind of piece it together.
Little bits here and there, and then you have the whole commercial about like, hey, we're gonna send people out to space. It'll be super cool, and then you get the further context for that later, just knowing how long they've been out there.
Yeah.
I guess to kind of continue on that topic, um, I feel like I'm almost ruining the movie by saying this, or like saying that I'm not like I'm nitpicking it or whatever. But like the planet is still completely uninhabitable. Like I there was one tiny little plant in a shoe in a fridge. I don't know how it grew in the fridge, but it's like everything else is dead. There's like the sky is just completely clouded out
It
with
shows
dirt.
them growing stuff at the end.
It does, and I'm just saying that I feel like that's unrealistic based on everything else we see. Because like even if you ignore all the trash everywhere, like that's one thing, but I don't see how it's sustainable. I like they
Well,
make it
okay.
work somehow, but
We have to clarify that we're talking about cartoonishly exaggerated situations here of like, literally everything is trash. It's impossible to live here. Send everybody up into space, then they all come down and start farming the place again. Like that's cartoonish. It's never gonna happen like that, right? Um, so whatever situation it was in the first place, to have been so fucking like the place, yes, is full of trash later, but it has to be. I presumed at least that like it is still actually quite a bit better than it was,
maybe.
and that it was ready for cultivation. I presume like I don't know. I mean, you didn't mention like, oh, where did they get the seeds? I presume they just had seeds on the ship. If that's your issue, like,
That was part of the question, and I like also just in the end, if you're counting the credits scene, with all the 2D art as like
by the way,
canon
that
to the
was
story.
gorgeous. I love the ending animation with all the different like historic styles of like the cave paintings and the
Yeah.
Greek fresco and the Egyptian hieroglyphs and the Roman mosaic, like the Impressionist painting. Everything was like,
Yeah, that part was really cool. But yeah, if we're treating that as like canon to the story or whatever, like it's showing like birds and deer and stuff. It's like, okay, where did they get the animals?
that
Like,
I don't understand.
and I'm wondering if there was like some Noah's Ark
Must have been they had
aspect
it.
where they
Yeah.
had some way of like recreating life on the ship, but
Or just preserving something.
but yeah, I don't know. It's the type of thing where it makes sense. Like I understand why the story had to present it the way they did, where it's like none of the Eves are finding anything, and then this one finds this single thing after searching for a long time, and this is a huge deal. It's the first planet they've ever found. But I just I wonder what has changed, because you have these huge dust storms. It's like there's nothing looks fertile.
Let me mention something else. The ship can sustain their life on its own, right? So the ship lands.
And it brings
Presumably,
that
they're not
stuff
just
with
immediately,
it,
living off the land. They're
going
back
back to the ship too. Right.
But
That's fair.
it's an ongoing project. It's just now we can start this process.
That's a good point. I am curious about one other thing on that subject before we move on, because like
Sure.
there's the scene with like Eve gets stuck to the magnet on the ship, and then like blows it up and knocks over all those other ships, and there's like the explosions and stuff. What the hell are these ships doing on dry land? You're not implying the ocean dried up, like, but you don't ever see any water. I think there's the scene where
there could be like decommissioned ships in a shipyard or something.
Yeah, it's like there is a scene where it's raining, so like there is water. The water didn't all somehow evaporate and escape the atmosphere or whatever, but it is kind of weird to me. But,
I mean, you also just see the ocean when it's a far shot of the Earth.
True.
The thing I was gonna say actually is I was impressed by the fact that the pacing was like good and fine. I don't really get the complaint that like the movie gets bad partway through when it focuses on the humans or whatever. Like,
yeah,
I don't think the movie could have supported a full 2 hours or hour and a half of like just the Wally Eve mostly silent.
Yeah, I don't get that complaint either. I do really like the beginning part of the movie. I think it's like it's cool to basically have something with such a
It's
small
very
amount of
unique.
dialogue, and
Yeah,
it's yeah, it's very detached from humanity, but you can still see the mannerisms in these robotic characters or whatever.
yeah,
And I think they did it really well. But yeah, that's like I don't know how you would make a story out of just that. You had like they kind
yeah.
of had to introduce a conflict. And
Also, you know, the way people talk about it is they're like, oh, there's the part with Wally and Eve at the beginning, and then they're kind of sidelined, and then the whole movie is about like these humans. It's like no, the story just opens in scope a little bit.
yeah,
At first, it's very focused on Wally and Eve, and then it opens up, and it's like, okay, now we know who Wally and Eve are. We're putting them in this larger situation with these more characters, and even then, it's like most of the humans are not characters. Like you have
yeah,
the you had the couple who barely counted as a character. It's pretty much just the captain. Um,
right.
and then just the humans as like a unit. Um, and I think the captain is actually a really good character. I really liked him.
Yeah,
I was, um, I think partway through the movie, the moment that really got me thinking like, okay, I really like this was, um, him like staying up wanting to just like read about, well, not read, but because it was being
yeah.
read
Just
to,
he's
but
learning.
wanting to just learn stuff. He was just like, what is Earth? What is a farm? What is a hoedown? What's dancing? Tell me about that. And I'm just like, yes, this is humanity. Like we got to this point because it's in our
Curiosity.
nature to be curious and interested in the world. And like even if this system had been kind of Brave New World style set up to basically just give everyone everything they wanted and sate them so that they wouldn't ask for more. Like it can't be suppressed entirely. Like it took very little to prompt quite a lot of these people. Initially, just the captain and like the couple of John and Mary or whatever to start being like, oh, maybe we could learn more about stuff and learn about each other. And they were like getting together and they took off the hollow projector things or whatever. And like it took very little pushing for them to do that. Humans just yeah. And I really like that because I found that inspirational. I'm kind of sick of like the humans suck and we're doomed type narrative, and I like the notion that humans are all
Yeah,
right
it's like
fundamentally, and it's
just a
there's problems
couple
to deal with, but our
just,
nature is good.
just a couple days ago. I saw it's a post, one of millions like this, but it was somebody took a picture of a guy on like a bus or something who was talking to like an AI, treating it like it was his girlfriend. They zoomed in on this guy's phone, and it was like he was talking to fucking Chat GPT or whatever it was, and being like, I'm so glad you're there for me. And it's like, okay, first of all, why are you taking pictures of this guy's phone?
Yeah,
But it's like, yes, this is a little
probably not good
depressing.
for him.
It's a
Probably
little
it's probably not
depressing,
good
but
for.
yeah, it's like
But
everyone's
he's
just like,
not causing
oh,
anyone else any
humanity
problems,
is
and it's not his
cooked.
fault.
Like, God, like
The guy's lonely because of forces that are largely beyond an individual's control. Let's
right?
address that instead of just be like, "Lol, look at this guy," right?
Yeah,
Stupid.
it's just this is all
Um,
people wanted. Everyone is just gonna live up. I don't freaking know what I'm going for here. I'm just
mhm.
rambling, but um, but yeah, it's just that narrative that nobody gives a shit, and it's like maybe there are some people that don't give a shit, and as I was saying before we watched the movie, like I'm very guilty of living a digital life. I barely do anything where I'm not looking at a screen. But it's like, I still value the human connections I have.
Right.
I life is worth living beyond just, a constant stream of information and playing games or
And
whatever.
even then, even when it's we just watched a movie today. I play games a lot. I'm always trying to like get something out of it beyond just like killing time. I'm always it always is prompting thoughts about like, what were they trying to go for when they were designing this? Like what would I do with it? Like it prompts further kind of creativity for me in terms of like me thinking about how I might design it, or the themes that are being gotten across in the story, and like what I can take from them, and that's all human connection too. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm surprised I didn't.
obviously there is a lot of slop out there that's basically not doing anything for you,
Right. There's always junk food. There might be
Mhm.
more junk food now than there was before, but it's always been there. Um, I'm surprised I didn't mention before we watched the movie the line, I don't want to survive, I want to live. That one always stuck with me a lot. Um, and it's like you said, it is surprising how quickly it kind of shifted, where it's like, you could kind of see at the beginning the captain had this character where, like, he's not having to really do much, but he's like, the morning announcements is the only thing I get to do. I want to do them, and it's
Yeah, people want agency in
yeah,
them.
he doesn't want to have everything completely automated. He wants to
Mhm.
do something. And then yeah, as soon as the plant shows up and everything's changing, it's like, oh shit, we're gonna do this. It's like, hell yeah, let's
Yeah.
make it happen. Um,
I think there is an element to which, like, because you see the shot of him looking at all the portraits and seeing the way that the person has, the average person has just changed over time to obviously suit this directive that probably kind of terrified him a little bit, where he kind of felt like, if I don't do something, this is just going to go on forever. That was probably an element to it.
Speaking of which, how
But
do you like the fact that they used live action for like the older stuff? I
um,
think that I
I
thought
think I
that
think
was
it
pretty
fit.
neat.
Yeah, yeah, it worked well. I don't have much else to add, but it
Yeah.
works.
Um,
Um,
that mean I saw somebody point out that basically means that this movie can never get a live action remake, or otherwise it would completely ruin that.
no, they'll just do it anyway.
Yeah. Better fucking not. But
um, yeah, I don't know. I was kind of ready to like be depressed watching the movie, and it was actually more inspiring than I expected. I probably should have expected, just because it's a fucking kids movie. They're not just going to be like, oh, we're all doomed. Um,
right.
but yeah,
Um,
um,
I will say also, I understand why they couldn't really show this, but I am surprised that like all of the people on the ship just kind of seemed like they were on board with like, oh, okay, yeah, let's just throw away what we've been doing our whole lives and actually have to do, hard work, after we've
well, I imagine
literally
they were
never
bored
walked.
and unfulfilled deep
But
down.
yeah, and it's like I was saying, like, it wouldn't have helped the movie to show people resisting it.
Mm.
Like, they could have had, like, I guess a scene where some people were like, that sounds like a lot of work, I don't want to do that, and then some other people arguing against it, but I don't think it really needed it. Um but it is very weird to think about. I think it's implied that they have literally never walked in their lives, because it's a big deal when the captain
Yeah.
does it, and then everybody kind of starts standing up, and you see him kind of
That,
waddling out of
that's
the
that's
ship at
the
the
that's
end.
the part that I
And
nitpick, because I'm pretty sure somebody that has never walked in their life could not just start doing it.
yeah, probably not.
Um,
But,
not to mention, it seemed like they said they literally have fewer bones, and also probably their muscles have atrophied if they're not
well,
using them. So
I don't
like,
think they have fewer bones. I think he said like bone loss, which I assume means like maybe they've just gotten weaker.
oh,
But
okay, like they've atrophied and stuff. Fair enough.
but yeah, ignoring the aspect of this is probably actually impossible. But just the idea of like these people who could barely walk at all having to go out and try to make farms and stuff, but the robots are helping them. So
Hmm. Yeah. Um. I this is gonna be really stupid and dorky, but when I started thinking about this, I just it made me think of the random fucking line that Prish says in I think she says it in FF11 as well. But I haven't played that game, but when you fight her in FF14, she says, "You can't stop the flood of mortal existence."
okay,
I don't know. Maybe I don't
I
know.
don't
It just
remember that
it gave
line.
me similar it gave me similar vibes of like, yeah, fucking you
Life
can't.
finds a way.
Yep. Anyway, trying to think if there's something else I wanted to say about this. I guess hot take is I didn't really give that much of a shit about Wally and Eve's romance. It was like it was fine, but I'm kind of over the romance in every kids movie. Um, Especially the part where it's like, oh no, Wally's totally dead. Oh no, he totally lost his memory. I'm like, it's not sticking. It's gonna
Yeah,
get fixed in 2 minutes.
that so I think it's cute. I like the way that they interact.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
or
it's
more
cute.
like I like the way that Wally acts. Obviously, at the beginning, Eve is not into that at all, and I've seen more than a couple posts trying to claim that the movie is
Right.
problematic because it's like, oh no,
Is it
the
because of the part where he drags her around while she's like in sleep mode or
yes, it's
whatever?
like, oh,
He's trying to protect
the
her.
male
He's trying to protect
robot
her from
is
the.
taking advantage of the female robot while she's asleep or
He
whatever.
doesn't.
It's
He
like,
doesn't do anything.
oh, but he holds her hand though. I don't. I
That's a
fucking
very
hate
normal thing
people.
to do to somebody who's like in a coma or something. You're worried about them. That's not like beyond what's considered normal or okay, right? Like,
I don't. People are fucking
I
ridiculous.
guess if
But
he doesn't know her, but they're a fucking whatever.
either way, so we have that aspect of it, and then as the movie goes on, it's like you kind of have Eve as Wally's just causing destruction fucking everywhere, and she's just like this fucking guy, like tries to get rid of him. Um, and then there's kind of the turning point when he is trying to save the plant and stuff, and I kind of liked where things ended up with them, I guess, but yeah, the scene with his memory being gone and then it magically comes back because of the little spark, like
I
we
don't think I
didn't
really
need
added
this.
anything.
It's it was sad, but it didn't make any sense. Like either it shouldn't have happened at all or it shouldn't have been fixable.
Yeah.
So, but it's a
And here's the
movie.
thing: is like when you put a thing. My main problem with it isn't just that it was pointless, but it was cheap because it's like you know that the stupid kids are going to be like, "Oh no, he lost his memory," and they're gonna cry, and then they're gonna be like, "Oh, thank God he got his memory back." But like, it's manipulative because and it doesn't add anything to the movie. It's just there to be a very cheap like heartstring tug for the kids to make them like you
Yeah.
know you know have a stronger emotional reaction to the ending of the movie. It doesn't like have any thematic relevance. Wally's memories are not like this important thing that you know. I don't know. I always think
The
about the
thing
end of
is,
a
like,
certain. Oh, actually, I don't even know if I should mention this, but there's a certain show that infamously kind of ends with um, a cartoon, I should say, that ends with one of the characters losing their memories and then pretty much immediately getting it back. And people were like, okay, what was the point of that? It was done a little better there, but
mm,
it's a very hard trope to do well, is my point. Even in like really good
yeah,
stuff like Wally and this other show.
yeah. Like I said, I think it was a stupid scene. I will still admit, it kind of it got me a little bit. Even knowing perfectly well that it's not gonna last more than 2 minutes. I guess it's more so the thought of like just kind of like seeing it from the character's perspective and thinking that it's all lost and then it kind of comes back. Like there's still some emotion there, but yeah, we didn't need that scene. Um, so what else we got? We have reinforcing the cockroaches and Twinkies stereotype.
That's
Um,
okay. It was
yeah,
it's they're drawing on kind of cultural knowledge and expectations there for some context and
I like the
some
little
funny
cockroach
visual
friend.
gags.
I'm impressed that
I
they
love the
managed
cockroach
to
friend.
make it cute.
Yeah, yeah, same. I really like the cockroach friend. um,
He gets run over like 2 or 3 times, but it never seems to get
yeah, it's
hurt.
completely invincible.
Eve fucking blasts it at one point, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But, we have the Little Mermaid stuff with Wally just hoarding all of these artifacts and has no idea what they're for. And there was a fairly long scene. I didn't remember how long it went on of him just showing Eve stuff, and I like just watching that crap and just here's some mundane items and how they what they think they are and whatever. Um, the old like cassette player hooked up to the iPod is great.
Yeah.
I love how he still has a working Pong machine somehow. Like, that
Yeah,
thing.
it's hard to find those things like now, I would assume, right?
No, it's like we have to realize, like, this is 700. I think like 800 years in the future because they've been on the
Right.
ship for 700 years. And so it's like the difference,
That was from 2110. I think the movie takes place in 2810.
right? Um, it's like the difference of wow, a Pong machine survived that long versus like, oh, a Switch lasted that long. It's like, oh boy, 40 whole more years compared to 700, but
I know,
it's
right?
still funny. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, old Nintendo consoles have especially the handhelds, have like the stereotype of being fucking indestructible, like the old Game Boys and DS and stuff. Um, Not so much the Switch. And I don't know what the old Pong
yeah,
machines are
and
like. But...
I think the problem with that stuff is that just like the cartridge based stuff is a lot sturdier. Like I would expect a cartridge to last longer
Yeah.
than a CD, and like a
Right.
cartridge
Right. That's
reader
what
to
I meant.
last longer than a CD reader. But
Mhm.
there is also just rot over time. Like this thing is
Yeah.
probably not going to work after 100 years. But
Yeah.
whatever. um,
It is a problem that I have worried about because I like physical, but depending on how long I live, like there was already issues with some cartridge games, like
I mean, the
relatively
GameCube
recently,
is
like
like a lot of GameCube games are dying
GameCube
from
games
disc
are
rot.
starting to die. Yeah, like that's why you gotta. This is why like piracy is important. Not to get on a shoebox, but soapbox, not shoebox. But yeah, just
It
some
doesn't even
some
have to
form
be
of
framed as
proper.
piracy; it's just preservation. Like,
Yes, but preservation when the companies are refusing to support it themselves means that you have to turn to piracy.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, anyway. Um, uh, so yeah, overall, I'm glad I went through that again. It was a enjoyable experience.
yeah. I'm still
Um,
thinking if there's anything I want to talk about.
no,
Okay. Really love the space scenes, both when Wally is riding the ship to the Axiom,
oh yeah,
and
that's
when they're flying around with like the fire extinguisher and stuff. It's like these are just
that was
really
cute.
beautiful scenes. It's like that. I mean, that's basically just it.
Mhm.
It's art.
I guess space and the mechanical things were their selling point for their animation this time around. Either that or the render of like 1,000 of the humans just rolling down the ship sideways. Um,
I mean, the shots of the city with the giant like trash towers and stuff were also
mm,
probably a lot of
Difficult. Yeah.
complex modeling going on.
I liked Auto's Microsoft Sam voice,
Yes.
except it wasn't
No.
Microsoft Sam, was it? It was some Apple. I don't know what it was called because they said like the text to speech voices were provided by Apple,
Okay.
so some equivalent. But yeah.
I really liked that. At least with the robot characters that have not like started developing a personality, they will have repeated lines that are just copied 100%.
Yeah.
Because early on we have the stuff that Eve is saying. Like I think the first thing she says is just like "Rawr," and it's like supposed to be "Who are you?" and it's just not even. You can't even tell what's being said, but it's like you hear that
Right.
clip a few times.
You know what it reminds me
Yeah.
of is have you seen that video recently of like this is so off topic, but this video of like somebody had developed some kind of program or protocol or something for like AI models to be able to talk to each other without using like human language and just to like speak in the raw like patterns they're encoding, and they did like a demonstration of this. I don't know how practical it is for like to actually be used for stuff, but they had an example of like these two AI devices speaking to each other over like phones, and they were like, "Oh, hello, I would like to make a booking." And they're like, "Yes, I am a booking system." And then like, "Oh, are you an AI too?" And they're like, "Yes. Should we switch to this protocol?" And they're like, "Sure." And then they just start going like, and just like making weird noises at each other.
God.
And there's all these comments of people being like, "Oh, dude, this is so creepy. They could be talking about anything, and we don't know."
Jesus Christ. People are so dumb. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Then again, I read a thing the other day that there was, some experiment with an AI that, like, changed the programming on, like, the function that was supposed to turn it off in order to avoid being turned off.
Yeah, I mean, this is just stupid people making it and not putting in the proper fucking like this is basic 101 shit. I have an AI degree just for context here for people watching. I have a degree in AI stuff. It was not just AI stuff, but it touched on it. And yeah, this is like very basic stuff they fucking teach you. Is like you gotta very carefully think about the ethics and the um the safety and security and all this type of thing of any system that you're making. You need to plan it out beforehand. Check it before you build anything. And it seems like a lot of stuff that gets made does not do this, which is worrying. That's the part I'm most worried about, not the actual like
just stupid people in charge.
Yeah, just people being stupid and not doing the proper procedures when making this stuff. Yeah.
As far as the robots actually kind of gaining humanity, that part is.
So, I mean, it's a cartoon. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think about it that deeply.
I'm not really either. It's interesting to see how, like, for the most part, they all just kind of have this one thing they're supposed to do, and they don't do anything outside of that, and that's fine. But like even with Eve at the beginning, even though it was all about the directive, like there was still the scene where she was just kind of flying around and having fun. So it's I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting, and then all the. I still don't know why all the broken robots banded together. Like I don't know what their role in this was.
Well, obviously they're oppressed because they were going to be repaired for malfunctioning. I don't know.
But yeah, it's
I think it's just supposed to give the vibes of like, oh, these are the misfits. It's like, okay, but they were just broken.
Yeah. There was like some painter one that just kept smacking the ground, and that one made me laugh.
Yeah.
I also liked all the stupid barriers that were just halt, and it's like,
oh, yeah.
What are you doing? Like, you're not threatening.
Well, obviously the robots are gonna stop when they see they're being told to stop. Yeah.
Age. But
I guess it could have been interesting if they explored something about like the difference between the robots that did have the kind of personality and human desires and connection versus the ones that didn't, and like connecting that into the themes of the human stuff. But the movie probably didn't need the runtime extended just to cover that. It's fine as it is.
now that I think about it, there is actually an aspect that I originally I think I thought it was going to go this way, and then it just kind of never did. Where like Wally is, one of many, but all of the other ones have broken down, and he's kind of been cannibalizing the parts to stay operational for God knows how long. Obviously he's been there for like 700 years, but I don't know when all the other ones died out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of figured that it's like over all of that time, he started kind of like developing curiosity for all these things.
Maybe, yeah.
And then it's like, when you first see Eve, it's, this slick, super futuristic thing constantly hovering. Wally is a lot older looking. And if not for that, like, if not for the stark difference in the designs of them, it feels like otherwise technology, like, would have halted. When they go into space, things just kind of stay the same for all that time. But obviously there was, like, still some advancement going on, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, who knows how much of it was human engineers versus like by and large is robots making other robots.
Yeah.
But which, by the way, that's another thing you're not supposed to do. But anyway,
But yeah, it's there's plenty of little topics. I think I've covered most of the stuff I
yeah,
would have wanted to talk
I'm sure
about.
there'll be lots of comments. Speaking of comments, we could do the Ratatouille comments now if you have
Yeah.
nothing else to say.
Yeah, do you have them pulled up yet?
I do.
Okay.
So one of the comments here says they always thought the biggest antithesis of the movie was that Linguini was not capable enough to become a cook. And they do sort of address this with Ego's interpretation of the motto being that it's not that literally anybody can cook, but the cook can be from anywhere. But it's not clear if Gusteau felt the same way, and so the closing message felt a little bit muddled to them.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
I don't know if Gusto's message was, anybody, literally any person can do this.
Because like I could inject my opinion here, right? Like I think that anybody that is physically able, basically, can follow a recipe to make something good. If not, if it's not going to knock your socks off, it's going to be like a tasty meal.
Yeah,
There's
following a
quite
recipe
lot of basic meals.
is
It's
totally
pretty
different
simple.
from making your own. But
Yeah. So what is that begs the question? What does he mean by cooking? Does he mean just making good food, or does he mean like being like the art?
it's
A member of the
honestly,
art
I mean,
an
he,
artist
he
of
made he made a cookbook, right? It's probably just
Yeah.
anybody can be a cook if you follow directions.
Yeah, probably. So I don't know. It is a bit weird because it's kind of focusing on like the very high end of like fine dining, and it's like that's not what most people's experience with food is, right? Most people's experience is Anton Ego coming home from school or coming home from playing outside, and his mom has some home cooked ratatouille. That's most people's experience with food, is just the stuff that your community makes at home, your
Right.
friends, your family. So I don't know.
It's
It's
like
kind of interesting.
there's a huge skill difference. Like even if you are like really good at cooking, or like if you have the intuition to know how to make a new
Yeah.
recipe, there's still a huge difference between cooking for yourself or like for your
And cooking
family
for
versus
customers.
make like this restaurant setting where everything's super
Cooking
fast
at
paced.
high scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
With
So
time pressure and all that.
there's different levels to it.
Yeah, it's very interesting how cooking has changed over time too, because you have like, back only like 50, 60, 70 years ago, it used to be like households were bigger. So you would have one person, cooking a large meal, but then that meal would feed like, like 10 people maybe, or at least, five or six. Like, and nowadays, most households are like a couple, maybe one person living alone or one person with a roommate. Most people are cooking for one or two nowadays. And that hugely changes the way that people have to approach the way that they cook stuff. That's
Yeah.
part of the reason that so many people just order takeout now, is because it's hard to consistently cook for just yourself every single day. Like that's people don't have time for that. It's a complete tangent, but I don't know, it just reminded me of it.
Right.
Let's see. Oh yeah, they're also saying like, how come Remy didn't like try to teach Linguini anything about cooking? Like, maybe Remy liked the self esteem of being in charge and being the chef. And I'm like, so I read that and I'm like, I don't know. I think it's more to do with the fact that Remy can't talk.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know if there was ever a point where Linguini like specifically wanted to be taught, but even if he did, like
you'd
you'd think
say
that
he was interested, because he tried to like mess around with the soup, right?
right.
First, that's what.
But the way that comment was worded, it sounds like Linguini wanted to learn, but Remy wouldn't teach him, and it's like he's the one. He can see through his own eyes what's being done. If the rat can't fucking talk, it's like here is how you do the stuff. Like he'll pick up stuff eventually. Like that's kind of teaching him.
Yeah. There's another comment here that says that Ratatouille is the last Pixar movie they consider old, and every Pixar movie after this, all of those, they came out a couple years ago. That's interesting. I feel like we've had this discussion about other stuff before. You always say that anything after 1997 is new, and
Yeah.
everything 1997 and older is, that's old or current or whatever. What about you? Does that change when you narrow it down to thinking about Pixar movies specifically?
For Pixar specifically, I would say it's the first 10, um, which could probably be further divided into like the first one. There's such a leap in technology between the early ones. I would say like
Mm.
Toy Story: A Bug's Life, then Toy Story 2, Monsters Nemo, then like the next five, and then I would say like the stretch from there up until um the ones I haven't seen, just because obviously I haven't seen them. So
Yeah,
it's like that's like the middle era, and then you
right.
have like the more recent ones. And
Fair
the
enough.
middle era is very hit or miss because it's got plenty of really good ones, and it's got the pit of sequels that are kind of not as great,
Right.
and also
Yeah.
a good dinosaur.
I think I mentioned that, I hadn't seen the first few until we started doing the series. So to me, those still feel like the old ones that I haven't seen, the ones from before my time, as it were. They still kind of feel that way even now that I've seen them. But I would say probably ones that feel old were the ones that I distinctly remember having some kind of experience with, either watching or just hearing about when I was a child. So probably that even extends into my teenage years. I would say like even Brave feels like, well, it's not old because it's not old in the same way that like Toy Story 2 is, but it still feels, if I absolutely had to cut it into like two categories, I would say maybe, what did they do in 2013? Well, like, oh, that was Monsters U.
I
I
don't
never
know in
saw
my
that
year.
one, I think.
I guess if I had to cut it in two,
I would say that one feels on the newer half. So between Brave and Monsters U for me, if I had to cut them in two groups.
um I'm going to contradict myself from a second ago. I would actually say the cutoff is after Toy Story 3. What was the one after that?
That's
Was it
fair.
Cars 2 or Brave?
I think it was Cause 2 then Brave.
I would say that's the cutoff
Between
because
Cause 2 Brave?
between Toy Story 3 and whatever
Oh,
the
okay.
next one was,
Cause 2.
because that was the point when like people were like, "Oh shit, Pixar can actually make a movie that isn't that good." And
Yeah, it kind of the shine came off the rose, as NL says. I don't know where I got that from. But yeah, what else we got?
something about a piece of Chile, probably. I'll just insert some duck noises.
I don't know. I don't know how interesting this is, but apparently, a couple people mentioned that Ratatouille got referenced in the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is about like different universes and multiverses. And there's one where there's like uh, a chef who's cheating by having a raccoon hidden under his hat.
All right then.
Um, I've heard of this movie. I've heard it's good. I might watch it at some point. I don't know. I'm trying to get more into movies. Um, that is interesting though. It's a
I remember it being referenced in Parks and Rec when Anne says that like Andy is it Andy? What the fuck is Chris Pratt's character? Whatever. Says that he always predicts in every movie that they're watching that the plot twist is going to be that the main character was dead the whole time, and this applied to Ratatouille most recently.
good, good shit. Um, yeah, because I don't watch a lot of movies, I don't know how often they tend to like reference other movies. I'm sure it happens like a lot, especially in like. Well, I mean, I guess that movie's a bit more. Like, I don't know. It depends because you have like your classic references, right, to like old stuff, like old classics. And like even like Star Wars and like the monster movies and stuff. People will always reference those. But then you get more specific things like this with like the Ratatouille thing. I don't know. in games, whenever there's like a reference, it's usually like really really obvious, and it like makes me cringe. When it's like, hey, look, it's the thing from the thing. I think we bitched about this with the crossover thing.
What
A few
crossover
parts
thing?
ago, just when we were talking about like, you know, very lame crossovers that just do the, the very basic, like, look, it's the thing. Do you recognize the thing? I don't know.
For some reason, as soon as you mentioned that, like, game references are usually lame, my first thought went to
Oh no, BA3.
no, it went to one of the Assassin's Creed games where there's a guy who's just like, "Hey, it's a me, Mario."
Oh, good.
Yeah.
See, this is what I mean. This is the caliber we're working with. I wonder if movies are classier about it. I'll have to see. I guess that's pretty much it for comments. I don't know. I mean, I'm also saying at least the dude's name wasn't Alfred in the Fetic. At this point, we're just devolving into
Yeah.
the usual jokes.
Right.
I laugh at Action 52.
I laugh at Tony Danza. But yeah, that'll wrap this one up. I suppose next is going to
No,
be.
I get it.
Oh
It's funny.
shit!
It's because next one is up, so that we're wrapping
Oh
this one
shit!
up, so we can move on to oh,
Yep.
it's
And
a real humdinger.
yep, that one will apparently contain a guest or two, and we will have to organize a time to make that work out.
Yep. Look forward to that.
And also bees.